It's finally happening. The market is flipping and it's time for the buyer to gain an advantage when buying a home in Bozeman. Bozeman and most of the United States have had a real estate market that favored the seller for the last several years. If you were looking to buy a home, there weren't many options to look at. You probably had to release contingencies and go way over asking in order to win that offer. This created obviously a lot of challenges for buying a home, but I'm here to tell you that the tide is shifting and we're entering a market that's going to favor the buyer and help you get the home that you deserve. People were literally offering over $100,000 over asking price and still not winning. It was a crazy market, and honestly, I'm excited to get out of it. The pace at which the market was going wasn't sustainable, and I don't think it was a healthy place for the real estate market to be. So let's dive into the data and figure out what's happening in the market and how it affects you as a buyer. One of the biggest things we look at when evaluating the real estate market is how much inventory is there. Now, we measure this in how many months of supply there are. So since the end of 2020, we've had less than 2 months of inventory, and it even got down to 2 weeks of inventory in Bozeman and Belgrade. Now, this means that if we stopped taking listings, if no other houses were listed, we would completely run out of houses to sell within 2 weeks. That's how low it was. Now, inventory is climbing and it's up over 500% in Bozeman. This means that if you're looking to buy a house, there's actually houses to look at. You no longer have to go look at the only house available that might not check all the boxes that you want, that's overpriced, has multiple offers, and if you don't want it, well, there's nothing else to get. So having this increase in inventory really helps you buy a home when you're ready. Now the inventory is climbing, the month's supply of inventory in Bozeman is up over 500%. Now before, you probably only had 1 or 2 houses to look at and they didn't check all the boxes that you want, and there was gonna be multiple offers and you didn't know if you were gonna get it anyways, so it was really challenging. But now, there may be several options that meet your needs and you're able to get the house that you want without the competition that you had before. Another benefit of increased inventory is that homes are no longer selling above asking price on average. Now there's still gonna be some that do, but most of the time you're able to get it below. Just a few months ago, the average home was selling at 103% of the list price. Now we're selling at about 95% of the original list price. A savvy buyer is able to go in, get that price down, and maybe even get concessions worked into the deal as well. Agents are still figuring out the new pricing strategy and figuring out where exactly the market is. So this time of uncertainty creates a lot of frustration for a seller. So you can use that to your advantage in order to get the best terms possible when you make your offer and buy a home. Now, unfortunately for buyers, we haven't seen a real drop in the median sale price of homes. It's still creeping up a little bit, but it has leveled out. Now, the data is lagging behind a little bit and it isn't quite in line with what we're seeing on the ground. I do expect to see a dip though as we enter the slower part of the year and the data catches up to what we're seeing out there. Now, one of the biggest challenges we're seeing for buyers is rising interest rates. Interest rates are creeping up over 7%, and it's creating real challenges for people that are looking to buy a home that need financing. For the last several years, we've been spoiled with artificially low interest rates. People were getting insane rates that we'll probably never see again. Those days are behind us though. I don't know if we'll ever get back to them, but right now, a 7% interest rate doesn't mean you have to actually pay a 7% interest rate. There's several ways that we can get around interest rates. The most common are buying down points on that interest rate. So a lot of sellers are getting savvy to this and actually offering point buy downs right up front on their listings. We can also negotiate these in as we make an offer on a home. 2-1 buy downs and 2-3-1 buy downs are gaining a lot of traction as they can reduce your interest rate for the first few years, and then after that period of time, it goes to the regular market rate that you would have had. Now, this is done with people expecting to be able to refinance their home into a better rate a few years down the road as interest rates come back down. Now, obviously, there's some risk to this. There's no guarantee that the interest rate's going to be lower, and there's no guarantee that you're going to be in a position to where you can actually refinance the house. So there is some risk to this strategy, but I think that it's something that you should definitely consider And whenever you're thinking about doing a rate buy down, you should work closely with your lender to understand all the pros and cons, the costs, and what it actually does to your rate. A rate buy down isn't for everybody, and it's important that you really understand what's going on there to make the best decision for you. We're also seeing seller concessions come back into play. Before, a lot of the time when you were making an offer on a house, you were waiving inspections so that you could win that multiple offer situation. You were buying the house as is, and if there's any problems, the sellers weren't fixing them. They weren't giving you any credits, and it was up to you to address those issues after you close and move in. A lot of the times you don't even know about the issue until you move in. It was a really frustrating process, but it's what sellers were doing and it's what buyers had to do in order to win those multiple offer situations. So now we aren't in that market anymore. Most of the time now we can get an inspection contingency on a contract, and we can actually negotiate either concessions where they're giving you a credit at closing that you can apply towards your closing costs, or they're fixing the issues with the house. That way, when you move in, it's going to save you money on repairs or really save you a lot of money on your closing costs, so you have more money in the bank that you can address those issues with later. It's also something that we can use to negotiate that rate buy down that we talked about. These changes in the real estate market are giving a lot of the power back to the buyer, and it may make it to where now is a great time to buy. Now, depending on your goals and how long you want to own the property, it may not be the right time to buy either. So it's important to sit down and talk to your real estate agent and really come up with a plan and understand what's happening in the market. Either way, in the long run, my general advice is if you can afford it, buy real estate. No matter what the market's doing, real estate is still one of the best ways to build wealth and create security in your housing situation. Don't wait to buy real estate and wait. If you're gonna be in it for the long term, it's almost always gonna win. I see a lot of people try to time the market and end up losing, and that's really the only way, is we don't have a crystal ball, so we need to make sure that when we can afford it and it makes sense, that we make that jump and buy real estate, and when it doesn't, we don't. So that's my general advice, and I wanna know, put it in the comments, are you buying real estate in this market? I'm Kyler Harris, and I'll catch you on the next one.